So first of all, my name's Anna Monfils, and I am co-chair of the Education Committee alongside Molly Phillips, who is here and has her camera on. And then Jen Bauer and Liz Leith have both served as secretary on the committee, but I have to also point out others like Julie and Jessa, who are on this call, that have been neck and neck with making this committee work. So thank you to all of them, and thanks to everyone for coming to this meeting. The other thing is we should not stand on formality, so jump in, ask questions if and when you have them. The other thing is, if you look in the link, you'll see a link to our agenda. Since I find myself confused when I'm going between screens and I'd rather look at people, I think we'll go ahead and leave the agenda as that link. And in there's a bunch of other links, which if Jen and Molly and anyone else who has the ability can help translate those over as needed. So this we now have as the Education Committee a standing committee. So this went through we had to write up a formal description, and then this went through a vote. There were a couple things in terms of looking at some terminology that we wanted to make sure that were addressed in that. So we have changed our name from the Share Fair, which many may have been involved in the past, to an education demo camp. Now, this is different from demo camps, which you may have found we've had before at SPNHC, but we decided to adopt the terminology, but make sure that's modified with education so it's clear we're not stepping on that other great opportunity. And then the other thing that we want to be very careful with is a committee, and you'll see that in a row we have the Education Committee, the Emerging Professionals, and the Professional Development Committee. Those are all very distinct, and we want to make sure that we work really well with both of those, so that we're complementing, not overlapping or confounding any efforts. And so I see Jeff is on here. So Jeff, you jump in at any point in time and let us know. So that's now posted on the site, and we are now official. So to be clear, we focus on formal and informal education of the public, not necessarily focusing in on museum professionals, but focusing on maybe end users of data or people visiting the collections or supporting the collections. So any comments or questions relative to that? I am going to punt now to Jessa, if your alarm doesn't go off. So Jessa got to show up for work today and find out they're testing alarms all day. So yes, Jessa's going to talk about committee membership.
Yes, so as Anna mentioned, we are a brand new committee, and so right now we have 7-ish members, and 4 of which are officers, and so we are looking for new folks to join in, and kind of anyone's role in the committee is up to them, but the idea is to just anyone who's interested in education from a museum setting or from a university setting using museum objects is welcome to join. And I think Molly just shared the membership link in the chat. And basically, we would like all of you who attended today to at least sign up to say that you were here. And then if you would like to join the committee, there's a column for that. And then we also are seeking a handful of moderators to assist us with the virtual demo camp this year. So if you'd like to do that as well, please put a yes in that column. And any other notes or thoughts you have about the future of the committee, feel free to write that in the comments column. And you may come up with some things as the meeting goes on. And that's about it.
Thank you, Jessa. We will talk in more detail about the demo camp as we get to end, but that's kind of a big deal of most of our effort to date. So as you hear us refer to it, you do have time to go back and decide if you want to be involved once you know what we're actually talking about. Thanks, Jessa. Nice job. Okay, so now we're going to move to our annual report and just do a check-in on what we've been doing this year. And Molly, the co-chair of the committee, is going to speak to that.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Molly. Pronouns she, her, hers, the Florida Museum of Natural History. I think this is our first ever sessional report, as we're a brand new committee that we just submitted. and it focuses mostly on the education demo camp and transitioning that into being run by this committee instead of being organized by myself and Anna and several others kind of independently. And also expanding it and adapting it further to a virtual format because it was originally in in-person format. And as Anna mentioned, also kind of rebranding and changing the name to make things more clear. And then the report briefly mentions future collaborations with working with the Professional Development and Emerging Professionals Committee, and also keeping our demo camp as an annual tradition each summer. So that's basically a quick summary. I don't want to go into too many details about the demo camp because I think Julie is going to give us some more details there, but that's kind of the 10,000-foot view of what our first report said.
All right, thanks a lot, Molly. The next person who's going to speak is Jen's going to talk about website and our Cubes Hub portal.
Thanks, Anna. My name is Jen. My pronouns are she, her, and I am at the University of Michigan Museum of Paleontology. So we have a new education demo camp website. I guess I'll drop the link in the chat for people who are interested in perusing it. So we are still actively recruiting participants, which Julie will talk about a little bit later. But we also have at the bottom of that, we hosted a virtual one last year as well. So we have our previous education demo camp kind of listed at the bottom. I think we would also like to have some sort of place for sharing resources. So if people have ideas about that, kind of hang on to those, and maybe we can talk about that a bit later. And then part of the idea for the demo camp and just accessibility in general is having somewhere for people to share and collate natural history kind of related educational resources, which we have kind of rebranded a section of a Cubes Hub portal. So I'm going to put that in the chat as well, where you can see different modules that are related to understanding natural history or using natural history data in some way. So these are kind of like a combination of multiple projects all in one place. And what I think is really cool about the Cubes Hub is that kind of similar to GitHub, you can have forks and DOIs for different entities. So you can really track kind of the evolution of your project as people modify it. Anything else I should add, Anna?
No, that seems great. Do we have any questions? I sort of feel like we keep winding up to really Julie's introduction to the demo camp and what that means now. And so we might end up back with questions after that. But I think that now throwing it on you, Julie, if you can share with the group some information about our natural history education demo camp this year.
I sure will. I'm Julie Robinson. I'm from the Hefner Museum of Natural History at Miami University, Ohio, not Florida. And I wanted to share at first a little historical perspective because we started as a share fair and now are the Natural History Education Demo Camp. So that share fair, we still have that wonderful premise of anyone with an idea, whether it's a fledgling, something, just a brand new idea that they want to discuss to get some more information about. Those working with natural history collections, sharing their activities, their labs, activities, lectures or anything like that they'd like to get feedback on, or maybe propose to others so that they could adopt it into their own workplace. We continue that same thought process. What drew me to the share fair and to continue with this work was the openness to share. I attend SPNHC because of the practical information that I always get at the conferences. I can immediately implement most of the things I learn into my work right after that conference. And this was really no different because I remember at the very first share fair, I left with ideas for new activities for my volunteers, organization methods for educational materials, and suggestions for our first science teacher guides that we were creating. So I can tell you that from the historical perspective, it was an incredible thing for me to be a part of. And then we decided, well, why don't we expand that audience from those working with, museum or natural history collections to the K-12 audience and higher education. And then that's, as everyone says, we called it the Natural History Education Demo Camp. So I'd like to point out that lots of educators rely on museums and other informal education outlets to create these educational programs and materials that align to educational standards like next generation science standards, and there are many others, but they help to enhance that quality of science education in the classroom, in the home. So this was a natural fit to expand to that audience. So we said, well, now we got to get the word out. Well, we need to get some partners. So we invited our sister societies, and that could have been, we really have an extensive list, museum organizations, all kinds of societies, Geological Society of America, herpetology societies, botany. We've got lots of things represented as natural history and education come together. And we asked them to become sponsors of the event. We wanted them to become sponsors in name and by providing us with a logo so that we could advertise their promotional events. They could help us then promote our event. And Anna had created a foundational email that we all tailored to our societies. And then Molly and Liz have created incredible header materials that include all of our sister society logos. So it's, I think we've had an overwhelming response for sponsorship, and we are still relying on their efforts to help us spread the word. So we're using our partners to recruit our participants and our presenters. And in order to do that, we brainstormed lots of ideas, and we kind of came up with this one-stop shopping venue for everyone to use. And so the Natural History Education Demo Camp website that's located on the SPNHC website became the hub for the latest information. It became a turnkey point for information distribution. It really helped us to provide the content for our sister societies to spread the word. So in order to do that and to help them in their efforts, we've created a promotional toolkit. Now, this promotional toolkit has many aspects to it. And it just, what I really love about it is it always feeds back to the Natural History Education Demo Camp website. So the toolkit provided sample emails for our sister societies to use that included for their correspondence with their colleagues, their educators, sample social media posts and accessible images to submit, to resubmit, to retweet. We also had accessible flyers that represented a variety of present and past biological organisms that would relate to their society content, and a promotional video directed to the K-12 and higher education educators. So once, as the participants get the word through our societies and through us, and visit our websites, we have provided them with links to register for the demo camp and ways to upload the materials for presentation. The participants, we literally walk them through how to submit an abstract, an idea, images, what would be appropriate for images, upload materials. And we encourage, as I said earlier, any level of participation of the materials. So from a really neat idea they just want some feedback on, to all of these fully implemented activities that they want to share with others. So many of the participants don't have a place to electronically house their materials with a URL. So we provide, as Jen said, access to CUBE's Hub. And I will tell you, as a user of CUBE's Hub, and I just started this within the last year, really enjoy it as an educator. And Anna will talk to you more about the open education resources, but I will tell you that it really offers educators opportunities to collaborate with each other. They get this DOI, a digital object identifier for the materials. What I love is that they get a URL so that everyone can really locate their resources. And they have the ability to track the usage, and educators get to see the impact of their work as others are beginning to view and download their materials. And our K-12 audience and our higher ed, they're really about making a difference in the education of all learners. So again, this was a really natural fit to use CUBE's Hub as a way to house their resources. And so building forward for the long term, now that we're a committee and we've created a framework or the good bones established for contacting our partners and our sponsors and the participants and our presenters and the components of an accessible promotional toolkit and a website that serves as the hub for the information, now we can plan for future events because so much of the work, the legwork is in place. So thank you, everybody. And please chime in, fellow committee members, if I left something out, and I'll pass it on to Anna.
Great job, Julie. Thank you. I think Julie did a good job of reflecting. We've tried to do a bunch of the legwork so that we could do this long term with maybe an easier bit of lifting at the beginning. And we're kind of building it for expansion, because one of the things we've learned with an unfortunate but opportunity is with the pandemic, we saw a lot of people moving online. We saw a lot of people picking up museum data in a very different way. And this is an opportunity to think about how we could build partnerships and leverage some of our work through education. You know, we all know that trickles down to exposing more and more people to our collections, to how they can be used and to their value. And so we view that as a pretty broad mission of some of the work that we're doing. So again, thank you to this committee, because this was a committee of people that got stuff done, and that's been super helpful. And then reaching out to those that are here now, we have a lot of work left to do in terms of spreading the word and letting people know that. I think the last time we checked, we had almost 200 people registered to attend. We want to make sure we get more participants involved. The fear in organizing ourselves is that it looks like, oh, you know, I have what I use in my classroom, but it's not really ready for primetime consumption. This is always a concern of educators. That should not be a concern. Any work you've done can always help leverage other people's work that they're doing. Please don't look at it that way and realize we want to help you. So I'm seeing Jeff has his hand raised. Oh, but he's muted.
Not anymore. So I did want to raise something for sort of general interest for this committee. Here in Denver, my institution decided to, as part of pandemic cutbacks, totally eliminate its education collection. Believe me, I've tried to find out why, and I can't get anything more than bureaucratic mumbo jumbo. But I am interested to know if there are other institutions. The education collections at the Denver Museum were used for programming in a wide variety of programs, which included everything from touch carts in the galleries to augmentation of traveling exhibits to classroom specimens to traveling kits and teacher loans. It was a comprehensive thing, but viewed as something that could be, I guess, low-hanging fruit to be cut, including a staff of 1.5 FTE. And I was just wondering if that is something that other institutions have seen. It's going to put a big dent in educators in Colorado access to specimens. At the same time, we have been in the research collections have been encouraged to put more of our specimens online, but not necessarily with the intent of helping educators, you know, because that's the education department. That's not, it's to promote our collections, but to a generalized audience. Anyway, that's one of the issues that has come up in my institution. I just it would be interesting to know if that's a trend, or if we're just unique.
So what are other people experiencing? Kind of throwing that out there.
You know, at Miami, we certainly had a lot of financial worries. And I think the way they worked with our museum, half of my salary is now going to be paid by the museum instead of the university. So what they've done is put some things back toward the departments that house us. But that's how, and of course, because I'm part of a university, we probably have that's an extra cushion that others don't have by being a standalone museum.
From the Academy of Natural Sciences, we are also now part of a university, and last year the university was highly constrained financially because of the COVID situation, and the contributions that the university had been making to retirement savings were frozen, and hiring freeze was placed. But this coming, and of course, no raises. This coming year, things are looking up, and they are reinstituting merit raises and contributions to retirement. So it's improving. We have other issues related to the entire museum direction and philosophy, but I won't go there now.
I want to encourage anyone else to have a comment.
I could chime in, Anna. We are a separate entity from our education museum. So we are old, we operate kind of like departments within the university. So similar to you, Jeff, we've been encouraged to, mobilize a lot of our specimens in a digital form, but we don't really have the resources to make it into a really nice educational tool because, we're, collection managers and researchers, not education specialists. So something that I tried to do this year was I had a museum studies intern, and something we developed over the past semester was using our online repository to help curate a set of pages for identifying backyard fossil finds. So we're hoping to release that this week, but it took the entire semester, and it was one student who spent an enormous amount of time working on it with me. So I don't have an answer, but we also are having to kind of mobilize, but then there's no mechanism to get it into a usable format. We have to do that as well somehow.
So I can say I'm unfunded for any of my work in the collection, and I used to get 20 hours a week of, 20 hours a week of a student sometimes. Now I don't have any funding at all, and it's no part of my appointment. And it never has been. So the only restriction or change has been the student resources. And I'm not anticipating that's going to change, which is very, very difficult because that makes it maintenance, not moving forward. But on that not too pleasant of a note, but looking at some of those resources, some of the stuff that we're doing by mobilizing our educational resources is transitioning a little bit to the idea that, okay, if you can't get the physical specimens in your classroom, and there is some ability to do that with 3D printers and with some of the resources that allow people to sort of generate those for themselves, but that doesn't at all replace these educational kits. And I've seen stuff that Julie has done that's like, that is amazing. But there are now these ways that students can deal with data and work with like 3D imagery and CT scans that kind of gives them a next best approach. And there are new educational emphases that are on digital data and bigger data. So we might, I always use this expression, it's like putting the spinach in with the brownie, is that we can get natural history collections in the classroom in more than one way. And I've been trying to do that with the digital data because it is more charismatic than the sort of, molecular data, not so very charismatic. But when you're looking at something and it's where someone saw a polar bear in, 1920, that's pretty cool. And you want to imagine that. And then, oh, well, I can look at where all the polar bears are. Polar bears are a thing. The students every year want to focus on polar bears. All sorts of issues with that because we've got polar bears in Kansas apparently, but that's a whole other fun thing, teaching them about digital data. But I'm just thinking one of the advantages of doing something like demo camp is that extends the reach of some of these materials that people have already put the work into. So Jen's materials could easily be applied to those teachers in Denver, even modified for that pretty easily, even like adapting it so it's a little more place-based, but maybe that's an answer. But I think the problem is more losing those personnel because they were out there doing that really hard work of engaging and educating educators to get over the hump. So it makes me wonder, going to like our next thing is, and it looks like Paul might have had his hand up.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up. I've been thinking about saying something.
Okay.
So we've been struggling with getting we have a virtual Silurian reef that we made back in the 96, 97 with the 24K modems in mind. And we've been struggling to update that as part of with using digitization efforts that we did with an IMLS grant. And also now with our Ordivision one, we want to add an Ordivision module to that. And we have the Harris Loan Center. And if you're at the Field Museum during for the banquet at Spinach, some of those Harris loan cases are on display, and they have Silurian reef fossils in a set of them. And so we're trying to make that you can have the actual fossils in your classroom and get the look at it online. And right now, of course, the Harris Loan Center is closed, and they're not loaning anything out or even receiving things that have been out. But we've been trying to work on that, and we've have folks from the Milwaukee Public Museum and the Field Museum, mostly me and Pat Burke, working on it. And now we have a volunteer who is an educator and really active, and she's an educator. And so we're trying to, she's very interested in working on this. And we might actually we tried to get some money to make some podcasts on the Ordivision one with from students, an 8th grade student perspective, and let them do it. And we'll probably do that this summer or in the fall when things clear up a little bit, just to make it interesting. But we have a lot of ideas, but it's hard to get it all congealed into one, well, to finish it and figure out exactly what we want to do without educators and stuff. So it's difficult that way, making collection managers try to do that as they digitize more and more specimens. So that might be a demo camp education topic too.
Well, please do. We need some more topics. And, the thing is that all it takes is one person to gel that into an idea, because any of us who've ever taught know we get our things refined the day before they actually have to be in the students' hands. It's hard to invent these for other people because we have a million things to do. So engaging and supporting the educators that are willing to bring it to that fine level is hugely valuable. And then the beauty of the open education resources is you still get credit. You have a name, you have a DOI, you have an official reference, but now others can modify it, but you can track that others are modifying it. And that suddenly is not just a theoretical, I contributed this to my field, but here's the number of people who've downloaded it. Here's the number of people who've used it. Here's the number of people who've adapted it. And that starts to show like an impact. And I mean, I have one website with a module up on it that's been hit 70,000 times. And so that's like a pretty quantifiable thing. And Now, I have no idea why it's been hit that often. I have a feeling it got in some search engine, but we're not going to say that part when I send it forward. The really nice thing about the educational modules with the Cubes Hub is that that becomes also an intellectual property and a deliverable and something that you can see exactly how often it's used. The other thing is, by us promoting this resource, we're also promoting anyone who's contributing to the resource. And we do and have been doing some faculty training. So people who have like they don't quite understand the specimens or the data or the materials can get some of that support as well. And so that helps with the implementation. So I'm really encouraging, like, if there are things you guys have in Denver that you think could become part of the Share Fair, talk to us if we can help you with that. Paul, your demo camp, you would be a prime example. I should have said demo camp. You're a prime example of the stuff that we want to see in the demo camp. Nothing is too small, because everyone's always looking for these resources. So don't think, well, mine's just a like in-class cool thing I do. Oh my God, we need those in-class cool things. If it's more extensive, we can also accommodate that. If it's just starting and it's an idea, so please help us and help us promote this to make sure that we get out to the group. Are there other comments on this or anything back to Jeff on this topic? Okay. So what we're doing right now is through the January, what is it, 27th and 28th or 28th and 29th, Jen? What's the date? What are the dates of our demo camp?
28th and 29th.
Okay. So those are the 2 days that we now have reserved for the demo camp. We're breaking it down into these, I think they're going to be half-hour segments. It's sort of like a poster presentation where you show up at your time and someone can come into your room and ask you questions about your module. You don't have to have anything official, but you will have control over the camera, so you can go ahead and just have up your module to show people. You can do a little mini presentation at the start, but people might come in and out of it. If you want to attend, you only have to attend what you want. It's not like a whole day, I have to be there, or you can't walk in the middle of a session. We want to make this an easy in, easy out, and sort of high impact, low effort sort of thing, because none of us have extra time. But also, if you want resources, all of those will now be digitally delivered. So anyone can come grab your resources at any point in time as well. So we have that coming up on those days. And I think that pretty much we're going to be working towards the idea of recruiting participants and presenters for that until that time. And after that, we're looking at, well, what can we be doing next? And some of the ideas that we've come up with, and we have, please add your own. So Jeff, if there's a way you think we could be like jumping in or helping with some of these other situations or thinking about our roles differently. But some of the things we're thinking about is looking forward to a 2022 demo camp. So I think our most recent conversations have been maybe keeping the demo camp virtual and reaching out well beyond spinach, because, you know, we've all drank the Kool-Aid on the value of collections, but we're not all the people out there in the field teaching. And so how can we get to those individuals? And that's where our partners come in. So as Julie explained so well, we've been developing our materials so this becomes something we can do without the huge kind of initial lift, and try to do this annually with our partners and our partnerships. But then it comes in, well, what can we do at our annual meeting in 2022? And maybe how can we do more of an international approach to this? Because I know there's a ton of great stuff coming out all over that we maybe haven't tapped into. Are there questions? Some of the topic, is there a good topic? Is it good? Do we want to think of a symposium, or do we want to have an in-person demo camp? Those are questions I don't think we've kind of really addressed, but they're there as like things to address in the coming year. We've also thought about having an open education resource workshop. So that would be a basically bring your resource, we'll help you convert it over to a web deliverable format. So Molly and Julie and I, maybe Jen has done this too. It's a relatively easy process. It could be within 2 hours, we help somebody get their stuff published. And maybe it's worth having some of those because that seems to be an impediment for people. We further want to develop this natural history education portal. Are there additional things we can add? What else could be, like, what else can we link to? There's been a lot of talk in the committees about a community survey, and maybe we can add into that, or but dovetail off of that with some questions about what people need in terms of education outreach. And then we've also talked about possibly hosting a webinar or two over the next year, either on our own as Spinach or in conjunction with several other awesome initiatives that has to do with education or a key educational issue related to collections. Some stuff that's come up is looking at things like creating inclusive materials and the possibility of some webinars on that. Maybe one on decolonization in education, some of those things, so where we kind of overlap with a lot of other initiatives that are also coming out of Spinach and other societies. So that is a wide open discussion, and including everyone on this committee. If I missed something or misrepresented something, jump on in. We're taking notes, but also throw this into the ideas and priorities list. We'd love to see those ideas there as well. I do see a comment from Jeff Stephenson about creating resources for underserved schools. I think that's an excellent point.
Especially now, since at least there was an effort to get Zoom classes more and more, that were forced to have offsite virtual classroom. So there's the technology that's there in some of these schools. I don't know how extensive or to what degree, but because there's that avenue, that might be a place to advertise. That's probably the wrong word, but.
No, and I think there's actually, we've been doing this through a group I'm involved with, is not everyone can download a data set. And so sometimes, even though it's great if they can go to the original resources, or if you have stuff, finding other ways to deliver things so an educator could have access to it for her classroom his classroom. I think that's some of the stuff with the 3D printing too, and that's where these kits that you guys have developed are so critical, because those are tangible things that can go into a classroom versus relying on resources to exist for that faculty member. But it's something to really think about, like, is there a way we could do that better?
And I'd also like to chime in, yeah, and we are sending everything out to the communities around us in this, the underserved communities. And you're also right about the technology in the classrooms. My own daughter working up, she works up north, and they just got a computer for every child as of February. So they went most of the school year without. And so so students were actually, elementary students on their parents' phones trying to do the work. And so I do think that we're getting over a hurdle with that. But yes, I really think that this could be a great resource for the underserved.
So it'd be good to hear from some of the people on the call. I know some people like to be in the background, and that's fine. I'm not going to call on anyone. I always tell my students that as a promise, as long as I can force someone next to them to talk. But I'm just wondering, we've got a lot of people on the call, some I've met before, some not, what did you want to see at this meeting? What do you think? Is there interest in being involved? Is there other stuff you think we could be focused on?
I just have a quick question, well, maybe not quick, but I've tried to go to two education demo fairs, and one in New Zealand, which I got sidetracked, and by the time I found the right building, that was over. And in Chicago, I was able to walk in for a good 30 seconds before someone pulled me away to tell me that one of the classrooms were overheating and they needed lunch. I never actually really attended one. And I'm just wondering, how does it, if you're a presenter, what do you do? What is the format, or how does it work? I think Julia talked about a little bit, but I missed some of that.
You mean the in-person or the virtual?
Well, the virtual, I guess, that'll be more important at this point.
Well, for the virtual, have you been to any virtual poster sessions?
I don't know if I have.
I think we're imagining it like that, where since everything's available online, so you've got your materials posted, or you've got an outline of your materials posted, and we can help make them available. You're basically standing there to help people who are thinking about, well, what would I do with this? Or you might have a list of questions. So if I use the example of the one you talked about, you probably have some basic ideas about where you're going with it. You could introduce that and then ask people their ideas or what they would need, or if you had any questions. When we did them in person, often the people would come with a bunch of, like they'd be holding a copy of your resource because we'd hand it to them. And then they'd start asking questions like, how do you do this? And, you know, here's a question, or here's an idea. What were other people's experiences or thoughts on that?
I think maybe we should provide some context. So last year we attempted to do a virtual event, and we had, I think, what, 3 or 5 minute pre-recorded content, and that seemed like a big ask for people to produce ahead of time. And then we kind of had, well, I think maybe 15-minute blocks of thematic groupings, and it just went really fast. And then we had 15-minute panel kind of discussions after the fact. I think this year we want it to be a little bit more informal, so people feel more comfortable having discussions about the content. So I don't think we have an exact, you know, structure on this person's going to be here for only 15 minutes and you have to be there during that window. It's going to be a little bit more elongate, so people have time to, you know, go there, see a summary slide of whatever the content was, or look through the Cubes Hub and then chat with whoever created the resource. So I think at the poster sessions I've been to in our demo camp last year, they're always really rushed and too formal, and then you can never kind of interject. So I think we're trying to avoid that and create more of an inviting space for people to have actual discussions and ask questions with whoever created the material.
I think one of our issues in the past too was we'd have 8 great resources. We'd put people at table, and then we got great participation. So you've got like now a ton of people crammed in a small room around someone's resource. And I'm watching Julie's awesome research get presented, and Molly's and Jen's, but I'm over like maybe talking to a group, and I want to see all of their stuff. So this allows us to let everyone attend and see whatever they want. And so you're not stuck having to choose one of 8, and we're not space constrained, which is a good thing that happened, but maybe we're addressing it a little bit, just giving people a time slot and people can go in. What we're going to be missing are some of the really cool physical stuff that people have done before. Like they would bring their like horse's teeth, or they would bring their like bones or their 3D replicated stuff, and you would be able to see the stuff that was hands-on. Julie, do you have anything? Because I know you've presented there. I'm trying to look around to see who else. Is anyone else here presented before?
One of the things I remember is, you know, I would bring my teacher guides, things that were easy to pack, that didn't take up a lot of room in my suitcase, but still I was still able to get good information from other people just by showing them the physical item. And so, and last year, I don't recall, I think when Spinach had the poster sessions, I don't think that there was like a breakout room. I think they just had the posters available for viewing. And so, but it is in very much like that, I think, for this year, in that by providing all of our resources there, and they're in a breakout room, they're ready to talk to others about their resources. And we've talked about helping presenters, either providing just maybe even a slide of just some topics or questions that they have that they want to discuss with the people coming in. And so what I love, like I said earlier, is the openness of it. Just being open to hearing everyone's suggestions and being willing to just show up and learn, as you know, it was just beauty in that. So.
Do we have other questions, comments? So I'm trying to leave, so registration's open for presenters. Even if you just want to be supportive, we would love to have people participate. I think that might be one of our, educators are tired right now, like deeply tired. And we all are, to be honest. I think we all just are like, I don't need one more thing on my plate. So we tried to make this something that is a matter of showing up with what you have. And I'm getting a question, what is the topic being discussed? We're talking about potential directions for the education committee in the next year, or ideas about any of the things that we are thinking of moving forward. And so if you're joining us a little bit later and have some ideas or questions or comments, jump right in. So I'm just responding to something that came through. So the point is, we do really want, if you've got something you kind of been tinkering with or something you want to get some insights into, that's exactly what you can use that time for. And so don't feel like, and this is the biggest thing I hear all the time, well, my stuff's not really ready to share. Well, I think that is because it is an idea in your head, but sharing that idea and what resources you have can be exactly what someone else needs to spur a new project, new idea. Or I could put that in my classroom. And one of the coolest things I've seen is where we show a resource and there's 2 or 3 teachers in the room who then they're like, well, okay, well, I introduced it to my students, but I had to make these special Excel spreadsheets for them to do it. Does anyone else want them? And everyone's like, oh my God, yes. And then they're like, well, I added this part because I happen to know butterflies. So I added a whole part that has to do with butterfly recovery plans. And the next thing you know, your resource has just been enhanced just a great deal, and you've got new ideas and new directions. So it's a win-win. So if you're sitting there going, well, I'm not sure if my resource is ready, please just jump on in. And please ask us for help if you're like, I don't know how to get my resource online, or I have something, but all it is a Word document, which is all it is. We can help translate that Word document to a web deliverable format, and we're happy to help do it. So please sign up to attend and sign up to present. Other than that, we're just, if there's any remaining questions, the other thing is please do sign up to be involved. If you want us to connect with you about being part of the committee, make sure that you sign on to that committee sheet and let us know any level you want to be interested in.
Anna, this is Elise.
Hi, Elise.
Hi. Molly put in the chat that registration is open for presenters until June 6th. Where does somebody go to register?
You go on to the website, which we'll put a link in there, which I'm saying we, meaning it'll be either Molly or Jen, because by the time I got to it, it'd be like an hour from now. But you go to the page and there's a registration link. And if you're registering to be a presenter, first of all, don't let that date scare you off. If you need more time, let us know. We kind of realize we just want to be able to organize abstracts. It's just a click to register, and then you get a Zoom link and you click to the Zoom link. And the registration, we have some supplemental materials too to help like with the materials.
And Molly just put that link in the chat. And then Jen Bauer put a good idea or what she's going to do. So it's a good suggestion for others in the chat as well, if you want to check that out, and a link.
And for those waiting it out, I want to make sure we clarify, this is the same channel that'll be on for the Professional Development Committee. And so for those wanting to stick around or leave and come back to that, that'll be the next thing on the agenda. And Jeff, I would totally be there for that, but I have a class I'm taking this semester. And I've just missed the first hour of the class, so I have to go over there. And I'm counting on others reflecting back the critical information we need to have. So.
And the meetings will be recorded.
Yeah, I actually tried to do 2 Zooms at once because there was a webinar that wasn't getting recorded, and I had a department meeting at the same time, and it's really difficult.
Well, since they make me participate in that class, it's really, really difficult because then I hear questions being asked and I'm not paying attention. So that's bad on a good day. So having 2 things going on.
As long as you don't agree to do something that you really can't do in the meeting.
Well, I'm going to head out because I'm already in trouble for missing my class. Thank you, everyone who came, and please do sign up. And if the conversation continues, great. I can just close out. I think I was just a presenter. So everyone have a great day. Someone asked if it was possible to present ideas to be implemented in the demo camp. Project's not yet started. I think, yes. You can still have an abstract, but you might want to link like your idea in that, just so there's something web deliverable that we can have. But absolutely, that's Luz Gomez who asked that question.